Well, we begin tonight in Turner County, where one woman is producing a documentary on Ashburn's decades-old unsolved murder. For film producer Tracy Laster, the story is more than just making a movie. She hopes her work will help unravel the mystery surrounding her sister's fatal stabbing. South Georgia Television News Albany Bureau Chief Samantha Cook has more in tonight's top story.
It's been 40 years now that Ashburn was rocked by the brutal stabbing of 19-year-old Crystal Richardson. And now Richardson's sister is working on putting together a documentary that details the murder, trials, and still unanswered questions in hopes of reopening the gruesome case.
It was devastating. It took its toll on the whole entire family, my mother, my other siblings, and myself. I think it just reshaped our lives totally.
In March of 1982, the body of 19-year-old Crystal Richardson Martin was found on Gisela Road in Ashburn. With some help, I was able to find some newspaper clippings from that time that described the scene as gruesome.
She was stabbed several times. The medical report also says she died. She was hit with a blunt object to the head also.
And to this day, no one has served time for the murder. However, Laster has been using her time to document what happened to her sister.
I wrote a book about the story in 2003, and that was sort of my testimony, my healing process.
And now, nearly 40 years later, Laster's putting together a documentary that she hopes will breathe new life into this cold case.
I wrote a book about my sister in 2003 titled Remembering Crystal, Her Life, Her Death, Her Spirit. It's about my second oldest sister who was brutally murdered in our small hometown of Ashburn, Georgia. I knew I had a story to tell, and I had, it was in me, and it was always on my mind, and I wanted to tell the story and to be the voice for my family and my sister. My sister was 19 years old when she was killed. Growing up in Ashburn, Georgia was okay. It was a small community, and everyone knew everyone, mostly a farming community, and wasn't many places to go, but it was a lot to do within the household. We were raised by a single mom, and then we didn't have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed. She was a great provider, and she worked, and when she wasn't working, she was always home with us. I can't remember my mom not being there. My siblings and I were very close, and it was 7 of us. It was 3 boys and 4 girls. And so I had a lot to do, and we had a lot to play with, and playing with each other was a lot of fun. As a teenager, Crystal was like lots of fun, and she was a dancer. I mean, she liked to dance, she loved music, and she taught me how to dance. She started dating early, so she mostly spent a lot of time with her husband, which was a boyfriend at that time. She was the second oldest, but she acted like the oldest. I think we mind her more than we did the oldest. As a teenager, she was lots of fun. She was the big sister that I had that I would go to. So we would just sit around the house and we would just make jokes at each other, the siblings would. So she was really the one that would make you laugh the most. Something that happened prior to my sister's murder that makes me question it. About a week before she was murdered, she told me somebody in the family was gonna die. She told me and our younger sister that. And we was naming names, and then I finally said, "Is it you?" And she said, "Yes, so let's pray." And I just often wonder about that. Was she threatened in any way, or what went on during that time for her to say that somebody in the family was gonna die?
I didn't notice nothing different. I didn't know nothing different. It was just like the norm. But that Sunday night, it was Sunday day, we had decided to go walking Sunday night. And so I think we had picked the time, maybe around 8 o'clock. So when it got closer to it, she was coming off her front porch, and I was upstairs in my room, had the window up. And I hollered down and let her know that I wasn't gonna be able to make it because, I had them kids and I had to do some chores and stuff. And so I said, "You still gonna go though?" She said, "Yeah, I'm still going." I said, "All right then, maybe the next time." And she was walking away from the project, and she asked me for some gum and stuff in the bag, and we said a few more words. And that's what the last time I saw Crystal alive.
The last time I saw my sister was that Sunday evening. She had left and went somewhere, but she came back home. And I was sitting on the couch looking at television, and she came in and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and she proceeded to walk up the stairs, and she never took her eyes off me, and I never took my eyes off her. And she continued to proceed to go up the stairs, and I said to myself, "Wow, I wonder why she's looking at me like that." And that was the last time I saw her.
There was 2 calls that was called to the police station on the same thing the night before. There was a call came in about 9:10, and the caller said that there's a dead animal or a body on the side of the road on Sugar Hill. Sugar Hill, to some of the officers, if it was to the city limits. The first officers actually went out there and went to the city limit side. They didn't go any further. There was a second call came in that night. It was around midnight, a little after, and the dispatcher took the call, but he didn't dispatch the call out. We would have gotten a call, probably we would have found her alive.
The gentleman that she was dating came to our house. It was about 9:30 p.m. and he was looking for her. And he asked, "Is Crystal here?" And my mom, and it was me and maybe a couple other people there. And we told him she wasn't there, so we told him no. And he turned to walk out the door after hearing that, and then he turned back around and he said, "The strangest thing just happened. Me and a friend of mine was going down Sugar Hill Road, and we saw a dead body in the road. And we were afraid to stop because, we wanted to get on. We didn't know who it was or what it was. But we saw a dead body laying in the road." And then someone said, "Well, you ought to call the ambulance." He said, "We did, the police," and he said, "We did call the ambulance, but we don't know if they went out there yet. But the strangest thing happened. We saw that dead body in the road."
I became associated with Crystal in March of '82. I was on a school bus delivering kids to school that morning. And when I came upon the intersection of Cannon Road, there where it intersect, I went to make a right turn, but I looked to the left to see what traffic was coming. I looked back to the right. When I did, in my vision in crossing like that, I looked and I saw what I thought was a body that was lying in a ditch line area over there on the left side of the road. I had a lot of kids on the bus with me. So I told the kids, I said, y'all stay on the bus. But as I went across the road to investigate, because I was a police officer at the time also, I mainly looked to see if she was alive, but there was so much dust because all of those roads out there were dirt roads, and she had been out there doing our investigation. We found out she'd probably been out there since 9:30, 10 o'clock the night before. This was about 7:45 in the morning the next day. As I went over there, I noticed what I thought was stab wounds right here in her breast. I could see a hand, she was lying in a ditch like this, and this hand that was back, there was 2 fingers, was cut almost off. And I heard one of the kids had done got off the bus stand. I heard him call her name. That's how I knew who it was, because they recognized her.
I left for school, my brother and I, and when I arrived at the elementary school, because we had to catch the bus to go over to the high school, and a classmate of mine came off the bus, hysterical, screaming, somebody done killed your sister. And her new dead body is over on Sugar Hill Road in a ditch.
I woke up that morning hearing a lot of screaming coming from my aunt's house across the walkway. And I went in, you know, like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I could see her just down on the floor, just crying, Crystal dead, Crystal dead. And they find Crystal body. I said, dead? What you mean dead? They found her out there, she out there on Sugar Hill. And it was so hurtful. Then to hear that she was naked, no clothes on.
The next thing I remember, I'm back up there. Someone come up and said, well, I want you all cover up. And I said, well, we got to do the investigation first. That's why we put a line that you don't cross, you know, back there, so people won't be just readily staring upon her. She was nude, no clothes whatsoever on. This was in the county, so any reports that was made, I didn't make a report. They interviewed me, and that was it. They called the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, in, the Turner County Sheriff Department, and the investigation started from there. I had just got into law enforcement. I'd been in there about a year, but where the body was lying, I didn't see any evidence of blood, so that tells me that she wasn't killed there, she was put there.
What I do know also that happened with her is that after she had been killed, they put her on the back of a truck. They were intent on going and getting rid of her body, but when he came out of that orchard so hard to come down Sugar Hill, that tailgate fell down, her body slid over into the ditch, and when they got where they were going, he looked back there and he seen that her body wasn't there. But they were too afraid to turn around and go back to get the body because they didn't have a clue where it could be at.
We was walking around out there trying to find other evidence of how she might have gotten there. It's a trailer park there now, but back then there was a big house on that lot. And just to the left of that house, we walked to the back of it back there, and there was some tracks going across the field. It was determined that some of the tracks were crystals, but the other tracks were much larger, so we assumed that it was man tracks. It's like 3 went across, 2 came back.
There was a Also, a statement by a very prominent young lady that was a witness and was there at the time that the incident occurred. She said, if Purcell hadn't tripped Crystal when she ran from down through the woods, that she would have got away. That important detail stuck with me to know how truthful that statement was. I mean, for you to know that a person tripped, if they hadn't have stuck their foot out, because from my understanding, the Purcell guy was on, he was either on crutches or on a cane or something out there because he had a hurt leg. And Crystal was running, trying to get away from Five Ash as she came up through the orchard, and he stuck his foot out, and she tripped up and stumbled, and that allowed Russell Five Ash to catch her. And after that moment, I know that he pinned her down on the ground, and per the witness statement, he made each and every last one of them stab her at least one to make them a party of the murder.
There was evidence taken. Like I said, there was a autopsy done at the local funeral home, with the Ship Funeral Home on Toomb Street there in Ashburn. Two of the stab wounds entered here. There were stab wounds here. The two fingers were almost amputated. When they turned her over on her back, there was multiple stab wounds in her back. Those are some of the things that they discovered upon doing the autopsy. It was all gathered and it was taken by the investigative agency, which would have been the Turner County Sheriff Department or the GBIs.
Looking at the death certificate, it read that a blunt trauma to the head. So she was stabbed several times, multiple times. I think they say it was about 14 or 19 times. But the actual cause of death was the blunt trauma to the head. The boyfriend owed the killers drugs and drug money that was mishandled, and the killer told the boyfriend that he either give him his money or he was gonna kill, somebody was gonna get killed, him or the girlfriend.
We don't know nothing about no drugs and all that, but it seemed as if he wanted him to go get his stuff on my whole Crystal, and seemed like another girl, we want to think the girl named Wanda Lawson was with her, hold them until you get back with my stuff.
The little bit of investigation that I done, I found out that these guys was involved in selling marijuana. A friend of mine told me that he actually saw her in the company of two white males. And she was supposed to have been took out there and held until this young man, Martin, come up with the drug money. And the same man that I'm talking about, we found him the next morning. He had some scratches in his face. I think this was one reason why they might have cut the nails, because we found him that day while the autopsy was going on. A deputy and we went to Randy Martin's residence. When we went to the house to see him, to look for him, we had an occasion to look into, this house had two front doors. The one on the right was used as that was the use of the door they answered. The door on the left had been turned into a bedroom, but the door was ajar like this and you could see in there. We found some marijuana in that room, and the marijuana was supposed to have been the reason as to why this girl might have been killed, because these guys got this marijuana and didn't, the money was supposed to be paid for it. The guy never got it.
This case by itself, it drives me harder. I definitely am glad I was a part of it. We ended up, unfortunately, with a 6-6 jury lock. One African male was there, that was myself. One African American female. And then the rest of the makeup was maybe 4 white males and 1 Spanish male, and the rest of white females.
Being in the courtroom, a lot of things, because they had two different trials, and a lot of things, a lot of evidence, a lot of good evidence, solid evidence. But it was like the power of the Russell lawyer. It was just like Crystal didn't mean nothing, you know. It's just not fair how somebody don't kill somebody, and then you get in here like it ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying? It's just finna be an easy piece here. And anyway, they got Wanda Lawson. She got up on the stand. This threw it out to me. She got up there, and that lawyer, he got from behind his seat where he was sitting at, brought his chair in the middle of the courtroom floor, turned his chair toward Wanda on the stand, crossed his legs, and looking at her like he's saying, I dare you. I dare you. And I'm sitting there like, but why the judge ain't saying nothing? You know, like, tell that man to leave that girl alone so she can, you know, how can you do this in a courtroom? And he sat there the whole while she was on the stand. The DA didn't even say nothing. I said, well, why he ain't saying nothing? And that, to me, that's just like, it's just belittling. That's belittling people, you know, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, it don't matter who see it and who know it. Really, because of how he did, he letting you know there's something going on there.
I must say, I didn't think they were going to get a conviction. You know, people were not supposed to go out and tell anyone else other than the people that was in the jury, and that wasn't the case. So right at that moment, I knew that someone in the jury was working against the case and working against the judicial system. Why was the first foreman dismissed? At that time, he was working for the county, Turner County, and he was a foreman of some sort on the county. He actually told all of us that he believed that Five Ash was guilty. And the next morning we came in there, they froze the case. That foreman had to be brought into the judge's chambers. He there let the foreman person go. They then polled each and every last one of us that was on the jury to see if any of us had received any threats, because we were told that that he was leaving the case because he had received threats.
Even some of the friends, they had some of Russell's friends, I mean, that said things about the knives and stuff that was here, identified that, and then when, even though they did the cassette tapes, like I said, they played them. You listening to them people had to be there, you know what I'm saying, to know. They were saying specific stuff that you have to be there.
I remember my mom just sharing that she had a conversation with Wanda. Because Wanda was supposedly there at the scene when it happened. And she remembered Wanda pretty much admitting that yes, Five Ash did this, and she was afraid to share anything about it because he had stated that he would kill her, her family, her mom. But from what I understand, Wanda made a recording pretty much admitting that yes, I was there on the scene, he stabbed her, you know, she even told graphics how Soonabee started trying to run away and how he was behind her, still stabbing her as he was trying to get away from him. But that evidence, that statement, that recording was inadmissible during the trial. Then because of her fear, she refused. All of a sudden, you know, when the time for her to for the court, she did not attend court. She was just too afraid, and she just said she just couldn't do it.
I mean, everybody was just sitting there pretty much waiting to see what was going to be said. I think there was some anticipation as to what I was going to say, but I just went on and just told the truth. I mean, when I looked over there and saw the guy, he was just sitting there staring at me. And I want to say this, that when I went to court, I looked around in the crowd that was there in the courtroom, and I was the only black that was there.
I think I was like in the 8th or 9th grade, somewhere in that area, the day of the verdict. In the classroom, you know how the teachers or the front desk would call the classroom to dismiss the kids. And I just remember that day that there was just a lot of dismissals, you know, so every minute, as you know, sometimes multiple alerts during that minute where the front desk would call to the classroom asking the teachers to relieve certain students. And most of those students was all white students at the school at that time. And did not quite understand being young myself, but I later realized when I got on the bus, and there was pretty much only black kids on the school bus because all the white kids had been picked up by their parents, that it was a fear of either the verdict or what the verdict may be or what may happen if the verdict is one way or the other.
I was very surprised that they ended up making that jury here, considering all the issues and all the problems that had happened. I feel like that trial should have been moved. I thought they would have probably felt like they had less control. The DA, I think for sure he was trying to put on a halfway decent trial, but overall, he wasn't doing his responsibility of what he was hired for, regardless of what color the person was that had been murdered.
You know, you all can look on, you can probably Google or look in the news. Turner County is yet still struggling with racism. I think in 2007, they had their first interracial homecoming, integrated homecoming, prom. We generally have a white homecoming queen and a black homecoming queen. We have a white prom and a black prom. And the only thing we generally do together is play sports. Oh, we want everybody to play sports because we want the team to win. So of course we want the blacks, white, everybody to play sports. But when it comes down to other things that the Turner County could be doing, everything is segregated. And so that made national news. This is 2007. We're not talking about 1980. We're talking about, and I graduated in 2000. And so when I graduated, I came up through the school system of racial divide. It's that type of environment. So it's not a surprise to have a hung jury in 1994, 1995, when 2000s is still, this is what we're dealing with, you know.
Later, it was one of the men that were charged, one of the ones that was charged with accessory to murder. He was in jail on other charges. And to get those charges reduced, he said he knew what happened to the girl that was murdered 12 years ago on Sugar Hill.
I was told that someone made a deathbed confession as to what transpired, and that's how this case come to be.
There were 3 white men were charged 12 years later, and one was charged with murder and 2 accessory to murder, and they had their first one trial, and both trials were ended in hung juries, and the other 2 never made it to trial. The evidence, I'm told, was lost, and or they didn't gather enough evidence at the scene. And actually, I think that it was a botched investigation from the start. Any evidence that things that were significant to the case, it was somehow got lost or misplaced.
Supposedly, I don't know who had the evidence, all that was gathered, but I remember that the jail got flooded, our old jail, and they made a museum out of it. Now it got flooded, and supposedly I was told that the evidence got destroyed, so there was no evidence to present. During this time when all this took place, these guys that was like pushing the drugs and might have knew exactly what happened to her, every one of those guys left town.
This was really, this something heavy. You know, we never had a killing like that, you know. A young lady left Sugar Hill like that, butt naked. So people wondering, is this some ongoing thing? Is you know, we got some kind of crazy killer going around here, you know? And so people really was staying in more and trying to be more watchful and, you know, just listen, keeping your ears open and stuff. I hope somebody come that was out there and can know they can make a difference and for she can get justice, closure for she got kids and grandkids now, and come clean, you know. Don't be fearful, you know, trust God, you know what I'm saying, do the right thing. It's about doing the right thing. People need to know the truth, what happened.
All of those people that are living and has any facts regarding the case or know what happened to her, they need to step up to the plate. She had 2 kids at the time, and those kids was raised without their mother.
Yeah, for my mom and my aunt to have this knowledge, to know that there's someone there that they know who has this information that would not just won't share it, it really makes them feel helpless. Like there's nothing that they could do because they weren't there.
It's been 40 years now that Ashburn was rocked by the brutal stabbing of 19-year-old Crystal Richardson. And now Richardson's sister is working on putting together a documentary that details the murder, trials, and still unanswered questions in hopes of reopening the gruesome case.
It's been 40 years since my sister's brutal murder. We may never know the truth of what really happened, but whether it's by my book or any other media outlet, these platforms are a form of justice for Crystal. If anyone out there have any information about this case, please contact the Turner County Sheriff Department or the Ashburn Police Department. Please help us bring justice for Crystal.